Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. This is a reading for Twin Flame Divine Masculines, or if you don't resonate with that label, it could be for you if you're wanting to work with or balance masculine energies within yourself. So I've already pulled your cards. We're going to start with the overall context of the reading. So if we start here, we have the Ace of Wands, Page of Cups, Ace of Pentacles, and the Nine of Swords. So just generally what this is talking to me about, I feel like there's a desire on your part to make some sort of offer or come forward with the Page of Cups that usually talks about like a small gesture, coming in with the Ace of Pentacles and the Ace of Wands. So some sort of new start, but there's anxiety or worry or just generally concern about it. And part of the reason why might be this energy, which is the Four of Cups and the Four of Pentacles, which talks about sort of like the Four of Cups talks about like being almost like distracted by what's in your environment, that you're missing perhaps like a key piece of information perhaps. And with the Four of Pentacles, that talks about like feeling like you don't have enough. And so there's like almost like a holding on tight to that energy, or holding on tight to what you do have because you don't want to like lose more of what you have, is kind of what this energy is talking about. And then you have the Tower here with the Page of Swords, and then here the Queen of Pentacles and the Four of Wands. Or Four of Swords, I should say. The Four of Wands is what's missing in this energy. So because a lot of fours, that's talking about like stability and perhaps just like non-movement, right? There's not a lot of change, but with the Tower coming in, it's almost like you're needing something to disrupt or break this energy, because it kind of feels like with the Page of Swords, feeling like almost like waiting, right? Like waiting, perhaps like at a distance, or trying to gather more information about like your counterpart is how I'm seeing this, the Queen of Pentacles, the person that you're wanting to approach, and you're seeing them as being in the Four of Swords, meaning like resting, perhaps healing, or just in a very peaceful state. And it's kind of like, I feel like there's a perception here that if you were to come in, it would almost be like bringing a Tower moment to this one. And so this energy here feels very much related to the last Aquarius reading that I did called The Messenger. So if you have any Aquarius in your chart, I would take a look at that one. I'll link it above. But I'm just going to continue on with this reading as if it's like a new message. So we're just going to keep going a little bit into like what the next, or like what else is wanting to come through with this. So with the archetypes, you have these three cards. So you have the Poet, the Ring, and the Nectar. So I feel like what it is that you're wanting, whatever this like message, the Page of Cups energy is, with the Poet, it's just talking about an expression of perhaps emotion, right? There's perhaps like a difficulty, because how I see the Poet, right? It's taking pain, or it doesn't have to be pain. It could be an expression of like just what it is that you've been going through, right? Some sort of like perhaps creative expression, or just like communication, whatever that is. And trying to bring healing into the situation. With the Ring, I feel like it's talking about like trying to enter into a new cycle or new commitment of some sort. And with the Nectar, I always see this as like bringing. It's actually coming through today as like bringing healing to a situation, right? Because the next cards to come out were the Tear, the Fault Line, and the Gem. So with the Tear and the Fault Line, it's kind of coming through as being like there perhaps was a separation of some sort. That's always how I see the Tear, right? Something that caused pain, but it's coming through with the Poet and the Nectar, meaning I feel like there's a desire to bring healing to whatever this situation was, whatever this separation was. And with the Gem here, that's talking about sort of like, now that difficult period is over, or it's past, and the thing about the Queen of Pentacles being in the Four of Swords, right? There's this other person has also, like your counterpart has also gone through sort of a period of healing and integration. And it seems like both of you have gained some sort of wisdom or understanding about the separation. And I feel like there's a bit of a, like it's not, I feel like you're like trying to decide how to, like what the next step should be, because these two cards here, you have the Two of Wands and the Death card. So the Two of Wands talks about looking ahead, right? Trying to see what the next step is. And with that coming out, so the Ace of Pentacles came out twice, which is important to note, but you have the Death card and then the Eight of Cups, which talks about the next step seems to be putting an end to something and walking away from an unsatisfactory situation, right? So wherever you are now, having to walk away from that might be where the sort of hesitation or just the waiting or pausing or trying to gather more information, because the Death card today, again, that Aquarius message, there's all this, like, a lot going on with the Death card, but today it's just coming through as being like a permanent change, right? Something that you can't take back. So it's kind of like taking stock of where you are now, trying to see what the next step is, because this next thing is like a permanent or like something that you can't take back. So trying to do it perhaps in the best way possible, right? Like with all the information, with all of the preparing, with all of the planning that you can, in order to make this sort of transition be smooth. Okay, and then you have here this really interesting combination of cards, the Companionship Animals and the Marine Life Richness. So I always find it really interesting when these two cards come together, because they're very similar energies, where there's like a person, an individual that's surrounded by companions or like people who are part of your group, your collective, your community, however you want to describe it. This Marine Life Richness, I was recently watching Finding Dory, because often I get like intuitive downloads about messages and stuff like that through movies. And animated movies are so good for that, because they're just so simple, right? But anyways, what the message was for this card today, it's like something about an aquarium, right? An aquarium which is confined, it's man-made, it's an artificial structure, versus the ocean. And I feel like it's like you are perhaps in an environment of the aquarium, right? That's what's needing to be sort of broken through with the Death card in order for you to go to the ocean. And I think that that's where the difficulty is with the ocean. It's so much more free, of course, but there's so much more unknown about it. And with this inner core solidity, because that card is also really important in that messenger reading, about like whatever news it is that you're bringing is going to cause it's going to cause perhaps like an end to something that's been really solid for a long time, something like that. So that's the overall context of the reading, and I'm going to go into like what the current energy is, but it's really lovely, actually. You have the forest and the bridge. So I really love this forest card, because it's talking to me today about like connecting with nature, right? Like perhaps you've taken some sort of like retreat or something like that, or just like in a space of quiet and connection to source, or like nature, or something outside of yourself, like the sky, right? It's bringing in all this energy of like the northern lights. So like perhaps like witnessing something to do with nature that's quite beautiful, or is changing your perspective in some ways, kind of how this is feeling. And then with the bridge, this talks about connection, right? So I feel like it's, and I love how it looks like the sky is being reflected in the water here, right? just so interesting. So it's kind of like, I feel like there's something in what you're witnessing or what you're experiencing right now is something that you're wanting to bring into this connection. Perhaps like wanting to reach out, or like there's something about what it is that you're understanding or seeing that is changing your perspective about the connection, or changing how you approach the situation is kind of how this is feeling. Anyways, and then the next few cards to come out. First one here is the Maiden, and I'm actually going to bring this out with the Star and growth, because this Maiden card recently has been talking to me about feeling vulnerable in a new situation, right? There's all of that energy within this. And so I feel like there is a vulnerability on your part for sure. That may be something that is new to you, or that's what's making it a bit uncomfortable for you to like take the next step or anything like that. But it's reinforcing that it is part of like your growth. And with the Star card especially is bringing in all of this, like the vulnerability, right? That it actually feels like a renewal or a rebirth, right? And so if you are feeling vulnerable, there is this energy of like, that's totally fine. That's totally part of the expansion process, and to perhaps try and think of it as more of like a renewal or a rebirth. Anyways, so, but the next cards to come out, you have here the Riddle and Kairos, which has again been coming out a lot, these two energies of like there's something that you're trying to solve, and perhaps it's about timing, like when to act, when would be the right time to act. I'm just thinking about like there the last like couple of weeks, I want to say, have been really intense in terms of like planets going direct, right? A lot of planets went direct this week. So Mars went direct, like maybe last week. I can't remember which day it was. Mercury just went direct. I feel like Uranus is going direct in the next like week or so. And so there's a lot of like alignment that's coming in here. And I feel like perhaps you're trying to figure out like when would be the best time for whatever it is that you're wanting to bring into the situation. But it's like you have here the Seed and the Vision, which is really gorgeous, because it just like the Seed talks about a new start, right? All of that Ace of Pentacles, Ace of Wands energy, and it's like you're holding a vision. So it's like I feel like you within this riddle here, because I'm always drawn to like the hands here where it's like holding on to a specific focus, perhaps with the vision. So I feel like you've aligned with a certain vision, perhaps a vision that you and your counterpart, the connection, whatever your purpose is, perhaps there's all of that energy of like you've connected with that vision, or you're now seeing it. You're now seeing perhaps the reflections of this vision in like how you and your counterpart are going to work together on whatever this idea is, right? But the thing that's perhaps holding you up here is the timing of like when is this all going to unfold, or how. And I feel like that might be cut, because especially with the Nine of Swords, right? That's, in my experience, like anxiety comes from looking too far into the future, right? So there's an energy there of like, if you're looking too far ahead, or not even that it's like looking too far, because I feel like it's fine to look ahead, right? It's absolutely normal to want to plan and like plan for the future, all of that. But the anxiety comes from trying too hard to control how that future unfolds, right? Like really the only thing you can do is be present in where you are and try and work towards the next step, the immediate next step, the next thing, instead of going too far, like trying to plan too far in advance, because there all plans change, right? So there's something there about, especially with the Two of Wands, I feel like what this is saying is that there's like, yes, you can plan ahead, yes, you can look forward, but the next step should be the only thing that's within your control, or like what you're trying to control. And the next step might be the Death energy and the Eight of Cups, which is walking away from something that's not satisfying. That should be perhaps like the only thing that you're focused on. So the next couple of cards to come out here. So you have the Water Creation, which I love this card. It's talking about that it's not quite like, there's still something here that needs to be drained. And how I'm going to like interpret that energy is that like you are starting to see the structure, right? You have your eye on the vision. You know what it is that you're working towards, or something like that. Like you can see the full picture basically, right? But it's still like some of it's still concealed by the water, right? So you kind of have to wait until all of the water drains in order for you to see the big picture, like the complete picture. No one can quite see the complete picture. There's just like, but you can see most of it, is kind of how this is feeling. And then with the Atoms card, building, is always to remember, especially with the seed and the vision, because this Atoms card I always see as being kind of like collecting like individual puzzle pieces or individual clues or hints that perhaps as like a individually or on their own, each piece individually doesn't quite spell out the whole picture, but as you sort of gather enough of them, it is going to build into whatever this sort of riddle is, if that makes sense, right? Like, so that thing in the background is this sort of nebulous riddle that is continually changing, because it's like you have to collect the pieces as you move towards it. And it's like each one of these little atoms that you're collecting is going to unfold or like add part of the picture or something like that. And in the completion of whatever that puzzle is, will reveal what the actual vision or the final product or whatever it is. So it's kind of like this, where you are now is collecting the puzzle pieces, right? You're not, and perhaps starting to put it together, right? So you have enough pieces to work with, is kind of how this is feeling. You have enough that you can start putting the pieces together, but it's like, you try not to rush the process of like having the complete picture, when it's like all you have to do is like put one piece with another and keep adding onto it until you get to the end. But feeling frustrated perhaps about trying to reach the end when it's like you don't even have all the pieces yet. So why are you stressing about the final product, right? It's kind of like just worry, or like just focus on the next piece, the next step. One step at a time is kind of how this is feeling. So I feel like in your reading today, because in the last Divine Feminine reading, the masculine energy wanted to sort of come in and like, I don't know how to say it, not interfere, but the masculine energy was just really present in that Divine Feminine reading. And so I feel like it's only fair that it would be true on this side as well, that the Divine Feminine energy wants to come into your reading. So you have here the Strength card. So this card actually came out twice. And so it's just reminding you, like, I feel like your counterpart, the Divine Feminine, or just the Divine Feminine energy in general, is wanting to come in to like support you and encourage you with the Strength card, that you are absolutely building your strength. Whatever it is that you're going through right now, there's a lot of compassion, there's a lot of understanding, and also coming through with this energy, right? The Six of Swords, the Ace of Cups, and the Fool. So it's like because this is your energy, that it's like every step closer that you take, every little piece of information that you gather or new understanding, every sort of peaceful moment that you collect or gather for yourself is like the Six of Swords, right? It's helping both you and the connection and your counterpart to move into calmer waters, right? So it's like you are the one who's pushing this boat along into the calmer waters with your counterpart, with the connection, with the vision, right? So there's a lot of love here for you in this connection, whatever it is that you're doing with the Fool card. It's all of this sort of trusting and surrendering and letting go and just taking the next step, right? Taking it one step at a time. That's very important in your reading today, because there's an energy here with the Nine of Swords. Sorry, not the swords. The Nine of Wands. So there's a lot of energy here with the Nine of Wands, which talks about someone who is perhaps feeling a bit frustrated because there's been a lot of disappointments or difficulty, or it's like you're having to use a lot of effort in order to work towards this. It's like you have especially with this, because it's kind of wanting to be linked to this building atoms card, where it's like you have a lot of pieces, but the picture isn't quite clear yet, right? Or it's like you have a lot of, because it's kind of coming through actually with the Ten of Wands energy, which is like feeling a lot of burden or responsibility, or that there's a lot of things to do and it's like you're not sure how to do it. And I feel like that's what's perhaps causing the anxiety, right? And it's I feel like the message to help support in that regard, there's the Two of Pentacles, the Hierophant, and the Five of Wands. So I am going to do a reading on the Hierophant at some point, because it's been coming through so many readings now. And I feel like that it's really wanting to be sort of discussed and talked about. But the Hierophant is today just going to represent traditional knowledge, or whichever environment you're in now, because it kind of feels like you're in a place or an environment that's kind of feeling like the aquarium, right? It's an artificial representation of the ocean, which is more of like the real free world. So it's kind of like you're in sort of an artificial or very structured environment, and that's the thing that you're trying to end or shift, right? So there's something about that. And it's kind of like, I feel like there's frustration there because you've been trying to perhaps make a change or make a shift or put an end to this situation. But it's with the Nine of Wands, you've gone through many battles and there hasn't been a change, right? And I feel like that's what the next step is that there has to be a more definitive walking away from this situation with the Death card and the Eight of Cups. There has to be something more final, is kind of how this is feeling. The Two of Pentacles is feeling like I was getting kind of like having to like hold on to hot potatoes, if you know that game, like that childhood game, right? Like passing the hot potatoes, but it's like you're holding on to both, or like there's no way for you to, like each option feels like not the right option. And I feel like it's kind of wanting you to sort of be patient in this energy, and that might be a difficult thing with the Five of Wands, because this card traditionally talks about conflict, especially coming out with the Nine of Wands, that I feel like you may be feeling like there's a lot of frustration in terms of like wanting to make changes or wanting to do something different, but it's like you're constantly having to battle whatever this structure is. The Hierophant, a traditional value perhaps, could be your own your own thoughts, of battling your own thoughts or your own beliefs or something like that. But what's wanting to come through here, especially because you have the Strength card twice, because this Five of Wands has been shifting recently for me as being sort of like training. If you're trying to learn how to sword fight, you have to first learn how to train with sticks so that you don't harm anyone, right? So that's kind of like, that's what this is talking about, that there may be sort of a need in a shift in your thinking and like where you are now. If you're still sort of stuck in the aquarium, it's almost like telling you that it's this space that you're in, this environment that you're in is training you for the actual ocean, right? Because there's less, it's like training you before you get to like the actual, like the real thing, perhaps. And so the more you're able to sort of sit in this energy and master sort of how you feel or how you deal with the situation or what it is that you say or how you approach conflict, perhaps, or approach perhaps anger or anything that's sort of fiery and conflict based, the easier your transition will be out of that space. Like once you are out of that space, all of this will just feel like playing with sticks, right? It's not really anything serious or permanent is kind of how this is feeling. It's a preparation stage for the actual thing, because what's coming out next is the King of Swords, which is talking about actually gaining mastery over this. So I feel like if you're feeling frustration about like where you are now feels kind of just like you're doing the same thing or you're fighting a lot of battles and not winning the war kind of thing, it's kind of wanting to encourage you that these aren't the real battles, or these aren't like, they're almost like training opportunities in order to put you into the King of Swords. Because I feel like once you're in sort of the ocean, metaphorically, once you actually go into the ocean or you figure out what the riddle is or the timing is right, when the timing is finally right, all of this sort of conflict energy is actually going to be the thing that helps you to make the right decisions and choices and all of that. And I want to just bring up this home card, because that came out after the building atoms, is that you are absolutely moving towards home, right? Towards comfort, towards the place that you belong. But it's kind of like right now, there's a little bit of frustration that is just having to be worked through. And with the Page of Wands, it's just emphasizing and talking about like one step at a time. That's all you need to worry about, is like doing things one step at a time. There's no rush here. There's no rush. But you are absolutely moving closer. And it's like, try not to control things that are too far ahead. Focus on the next step. It's kind of how this is feeling. So I'm going to leave the message there. We're going to move to the extended. And we're going to talk about like what else is something that you need to keep in mind or something that you need to know about the situation. If you're interested in that, you can find the link in the description box. You'll also find information for personal readings if you want one of those. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.